Jesus said, "Man cannot live on bread alone, but from every word that proceeds from the mouth of God." You're listening to Daily Truth.
But by faith we also worship. We worship rightly, not only because right practices in worship are despised by God apart from faith, but also because faith is what motivates us to utilize right practices in worship. Notice Cain did not worship with right practices while possessing a wrong heart. Cain's lack of faith caused him to worship with wrong practices. What I'm saying is this: Cain, his sacrifice was rejected by God not merely because he made a right sacrifice with a wrong heart, but Cain's wrong heart caused him also to sacrifice wrongly. Look at the text. Verse 4, by faith, Abel offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain, through which he was commended as righteous, God commending him by accepting his gifts. And through his faith, though he died, he still speaks. Cain's sacrifice was despised by God. And it's not just that Cain made a sacrifice, but his heart didn't really genuinely love the Lord. No, Cain's literal sacrifice was different than Abel's. Abel was a herder of sheep, a shepherd. And he offered to the Lord the first fruits of the herd. He offered to the Lord the eldest and purest, most spotless lamb. Whereas Abel offered grain, vegetables, produce, and God despised it. And we might say, why? Because God's not a vegetarian. No. Why? Why does God despise Cain's offering? Because even that early in the story of humanity, we had the regulative principle of worship. We had prescriptions, not just that we should worship God, but for how we should worship God. Remember, Adam and Eve, when they approached God after sinning, they were hiding. They approached God and they had sewn together fig leaves as garments to cover their shame, to cover their nakedness. And what did God do? By way of implication, God said, these leaves, these plants are not sufficient to cover guilt. It requires blood. God not only dealt out curses and forgiveness, but God also killed an animal and took the skins of that animal to cover the nakedness of Adam and Eve, as if to say, only blood can atone for sin. Adam and Eve knew this, and they taught this to their children. Cain knew this. Cain was not just sacrificing to the Lord with a bad heart. No, Cain knew what sacrifices pleased the Lord, and Cain was being creative in his worship methodology. Cain was saying, but maybe fog machines in worship could be cool. Have we ever tried it? What's wrong with the normative principle of worship? Isn't there a little room for creative license on the Lord's day? What if it brings more people? Cain didn't just have a bad heart. He had a bad sacrifice. And he had a bad sacrifice because he had a bad heart. Meaning to worship God in a way that pleases him requires faith, not only because we need faith in our right worship, but also faith is what motivates us to make sure our worship is right. It is because we have faith that we worship with sincerity, that we worship according to what God has commanded and not the devices of men. Wait. Hold it. Big announcement, a scary announcement, a threat, but also a promise. The price of our conference, the Postmillennial and Theonomy conference, it's going up. It's going up right after Reformation Day. We are going to hold the price at $100, which is super cheap for a 3-day conference with Dr. James White, Dr. Joseph Boot, Dr. Gary DeMar, and the guy who's not a doctor, so we'll say Pastor Joel Webbon. We've got a great conference, May 5th, 6th, and 7th in Georgetown, Texas, just north of Austin for $100. Super cheap, but we can't hold that price forever. So if you want to get into that price, you got to get in now, right after Reformation Day, not Halloween. Reformation Day, October 31st. That's the last day that you can get in this conference, register at the price of $100. After that, starting November 1st, it's going to be $130. So go to rightresponseconference.com, rightresponseconference.com, and register today. Thanks.